Hello, I'm Darren Sargent, and I wanted to take a moment to thank you, number one, for purchasing the book. Thank you, Mr. Jenkins, along with this interview that you're fixing to watch that I had with Mr. Jenkins. The story of the book is about my fourth grade teacher who made an incredible impact in my life, basically changed my life for the good. The last page of Thank You, Mr. Jenkins basically says this: I don't know where you're at. I don't even know if you're alive. But if you're out there, Mr. Jenkins, I have one thing to say. Thank you. You made a difference in my life. It's interesting how people come into our lives and at the times that they come into our lives. Having been born with a physical handicap, there were select individuals throughout the years that I grew up that made a massive impact in my life, and Mr. Jenkins was one of them. I had written a book called Thank You, Mr. Jenkins. Actually, it was the title of one of the chapters in a book that's coming out this next year. But I wrote a part of it into a children's book called Thank You, Mr. Jenkins. It's about the impact that this fourth grade teacher had in my life and the difference he made. So we put the book together, and I was in the state that I grew up in. I was in Idaho. I began to talk to the superintendent of the school district. Fortunately, she was in, and fortunately, she was the mother of one of the students that I graduated with. We began to discuss what I had put together, this book on Thank You, Mr. Jenkins. And she says, "You know what? I know John Jenkins. I didn't even know his first name." She goes, "I know John Jenkins, and I recently saw him. He's retired now, but I recently saw him at a teachers convention just this past year. Let me do some tracking around and looking around, and I'll find out if I can locate him for you." So I gave her my number and left the offices, and a couple hours later my phone rang, and on the other end of the phone was Mr. Jenkins. And I asked if we could get together for lunch, and he drove from where he lived down to where I was, and there we met for lunch, and I told him the story of this book that I put together about that one fateful day that he changed my life. He recounted a story to me that was very unique. He said, 3 weeks ago, my son asked me, said, "Dad, whatever happened to that boy you had in your fourth grade class that had the one arm? His name was Darren." And he said, "You show up 3 weeks later." So I told him the story, and we began to have a communication over the last several months and the last year and a half. The interview that you're fixing to see is the story of how one man can make a difference. One teacher can make the difference in a child's life. What Mr. Jenkins did for me that faithful day in that little small town of Kimberly, Idaho in the fourth grade has been told all over the world. There is power in influence. And you're fixing to see the power of one man's influence in the life of a child. It's really unique opportunity for me to be here today with the fourth grade teacher, Mr. Jenkins, that made such a profound impact in my life. And we're here together in Moapa, Nevada, where I just got done speaking to the student body of a school where his son-in-law is the first grade teacher. And he was able to come down from Idaho, meet us here, and we're going to have a sit-down interview and just kind of talk about some of those 1979 to 81 memories of what it was like. So this is Mr. John Jenkins, and made an incredible impact in my life. And I want to take this opportunity to have everyone be introduced to the infamous name behind the soon-to-be famous book, we hope. And I want to take a moment and just get his take on what his thoughts were. That was 79, so 40, 30.
7, 8 years ago.
Yeah, too long ago. 30, 33, 33 years ago. There we go, 30, something like that. We're not good at math. It's been too long. But anyways, I'm really, really excited to have him here, and this is a treat for me, a very, very special day. Mr. Jenkins, talk to us. Tell the people what you thought.
What I thought is that you were going to have a tough time integrating into the class because of your difference. And the class you came into had a real hardcore bunch of boys. I was very worried for you.
You were the only male teacher that year in the 4th grade, right?
I was the male teacher, and we had a principal who said, if you're the male teacher, you get all the hard cases. And so you came into a really, really tough group.
Oh, man.
So it was pretty scary. So I think even before that fateful day, I was a little worried. I thought, I've got to do something special here.
Yeah.
I mean, they were normal kids, but boy, were they independent.
And all of them still are.
Yeah.
I'm in contact with a lot of those, and they're that class, our 1987 graduating class was quite the class.
Yeah.
Some cool kids in it.
Yeah, they were great kids, very, like I say, independent thinkers, but the tendency to pounce on people who are different is really strong in school children. And, by then I'd been teaching, I think, 15, 16 years, and I just had seen a lot of that. So I wanted to make sure you weren't the victim.
I don't know. I've been trying to think how it all came about. I remember collapsing on my desk. I mean, I was bawling like a baby. And I think I sat next to Shelley Morrill. And I have a feeling that Shelley was the one that got up and came to you and told you the situation. And you took an incredible advantage and just really made a difference. And as the book says, thank you. I don't know how many times I could tell you. But that day, it changed my life. It changed my life. So it was pretty neat. We were in well, how did you describe that room we were in?
It's a bunker. It was a cement bunker. No windows. We were prisoners.
I was telling you earlier, I went back last year and walked in my old 4th grade classroom. And, you're thinking that it's big. It was smaller than this room we're in right now.
Much smaller, yeah.
How many students did we have in that?
We had over 30. It was between 30 and 35 all year long. It was like I say, a difficult year.
Goodness. Well, I had the way that the book came about was very, very interesting. I want to kind of get a little take from Mr. Jenkins on it too, but I'm writing a book called Let Me Give You a Hand, just a story of my life, and in it is one of the chapters called Thank You, Mr. Jenkins. Well, the publisher wanted me to do 2 books, and one be Thank You, Mr. Jenkins, and one be Let Me Give You a Hand. Well, I didn't know what direction to take Thank You, Mr. Jenkins. I really didn't have a clear direction on it. Till one day I called the publisher and I said, I want to take this out. I want to take this out of the publishing contract till I can figure out what I'm going to do with it. Mm-hmm. Well, just a few weeks later, I was presented by a friend of mine a fully illustrated book. He had heard my motivational speech on our story and wrote the book, and I knew then it was supposed to be a kid's book. Well, it was already written. The last page, as we talked about on the phone or email, the last page says, I don't know where you're at, Mr. Jenkins, don't even know if you're still alive, but all I've got to say is thank you. And we chose to leave that in there. It was already written, but we could have changed it. But I went to the high school that I graduated from, and I started to ask, I didn't know your first name. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know it was John. And I asked Kathleen No. Right. She was the superintendent. I said, do you know Mr. Jenkins? It had been 1979, 1980. She goes, yeah, I saw him just a few months ago at a teacher's deal or a few years ago. And so that's when we came in contact. Now, you told me on the phone that your son, kind of tell a little bit about before we connected.
That was pretty interesting. That struck me immediately. It hadn't been but a short time, just a matter of a week or two, that my oldest son and I had been discussing Kimberly, and he remembered Darren because he was such a unique person, and he said, "What happened to Darren?" And I said, "I really don't know." So
just
a
few
when
weeks
you called
later,
up, it was like almost an answer to prayer. Yes, I get to know what happened to Darren because it was very important to me.
we sat down in an IHOP, and I shared with him, the book and my desire to have it published, and it's been a unique journey. How many years did you teach?
42.
42 years.
Yep.
Any other physically challenged kids? Did you have any other physically challenged kids in your classes, if you can remember, through that 42 years of teaching?
Oh, yes. I think probably the one that stands out most, I had been teaching about 10 years, and I was an educational coordinator for a group of fifth graders, about 90 of them, and I had staff to help me teach them every day. We were in a differentiated style classroom where we zeroed in on kids' needs and worked on their weakest areas, trying to improve their skills. And like you, in the middle of the year, in comes a girl whose parents had doused her with gasoline and set her on fire. So you can imagine how disfigured she was. And this was a great challenge, and she was a fifth grader and used to being rejected and just filled with defensive mechanisms. But my technique for dealing with her was, to totally ignore her obvious handicap and just look into her eyes. And she had beautiful eyes, and she had kept all her hair. She had beautiful hair, and it took probably 3 or 4 months for her to understand that I wasn't going to judge her. But to totally ignore the scarring and just look into those beautiful eyes and relate to her that way.
That's incredible. Well, from my perspective, to me, I think you probably had at least 6 or 7 kids up there. And just the feeling after that moment when you pointed out all the differences and called me up, you waited and you called me up. It made such a profound impact that you, an authority figure in my life, someone that, 4th grade, your life's your teacher. Your life's these people that are placed, there. And when you accepted me for who I was, everything changed. The kids' perspective of me, my perspective of me. I had a great home life. My mom and dad, to be the first child out of the chute, was to deal with this. My dad told my aunt in a chapel in the hospital when I was born, says, there will be nothing this kid cannot do. He'll be able to do everything. And that's the kind of attitude. But, you get that at home, but then you're out in the public, you're out in school, and the ridicule, the mockery, it all, from what I can remember, it stopped that day.
Uh-huh.
It stopped that moment. It was like all these kids said, oh, okay, Darren's just like everybody else. So you didn't know. You probably didn't even know the impact that you made.
Like I say, I could see the difference, but one of the things that most people don't understand is that when people see someone who's different, their overriding emotion is fear. And if you can remove that fear and let them know everything's going to be okay, that, just being different doesn't mean you have to be afraid.
That's awesome.
There is a lot of fear of being different in children. So.
Well, and it's, it began the process in my life of just, and I think a lot of it was the community, how tight-knit Kimberly
yes.
was.
It was a good
Great
community that
place.
way. Yeah.
Great place to grow up, raise a family. And the feelings of that day of acceptance, it was like a weight lifted off of my shoulder. I could just be me. So.
And you were, and it was beautiful to watch.
Owe you a lot. Owe you a
Well,
lot.
I think you have a guardian angel sitting on your shoulder, and I don't claim to be any person special, but sometimes we're guided to do things, and if we're willing to do them,
Yeah.
the outcome is wonderful.
Yeah, you definitely were. And you had the opportunity you could have dismissed that moment. Easy. Could have just called me to the principal's office, said, pull it together, Darren. You'll be all right, pat you on the back. But doing that in the public setting and not being afraid to take that challenge, I mean, that was it could have backfired on you.
And with that group,
easily. It could have, to take that challenge and, say, okay, I'm taking a step here, but it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, I didn't have any trouble doing that. I knew you were facing a group of hardcore boys. But I'll have to tell you maybe where it all started, if you'd like to hear that.
I'd love to.
When I was in first grade, I had an experience similar to yours. Coloring takes a big part of the day, fill in this, fill in that, and the teacher gave us all an outline of a duck by a pond. He said, okay, I want you to color this duck, and I'll come around and see how you're doing. And so, being very eclectic, I thought, aquamarine was my favorite color then, and so I made an aquamarine duck. And when she came around, she's going around, beautiful, lovely, great. What?
Oh my goodness.
Who ever heard of an aquamarine duck? And you know how that felt.
Yeah. First grade, it's impressionable.
Yeah, and it didn't help that I was in love with this teacher. I was hoping we'd get married someday. There it was, romance over.
The impact of words. The impact of words that a person in the position of a teacher.
Right.
And this is what I want to drive home to teachers is, every day I know kids get on their nerves. I understand that. I've been involved in school and teaching. You want to pull all your hair out.
Right.
But you have these defining moments like it was that day with me where that window of opportunity opens that this is it. And sometimes you don't even know it, but your sensitivity to just take that step and that challenge is remarkable. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
that.
you, Mr. Jenkins.
You've had a big impact in my retiring years, let me tell you.
This has been a really cool experience too. We're teasing around about going to Oprah, but Oprah, watch out, here we come. You don't know it yet.
I don't know if I can do Oprah.
Oh yeah, you can do it. We can do it. He can do it. You can make him do Oprah. You were telling me earlier about I was in the 6th grade by then, Mr.
Right.
Altamos's class.
In 81,
So
yeah.
kind of take it away. Tell the story.
Well, I guess the reason that this sticks with me so much is when my son asked about if I still knew where you were, that picture that I've carried all these years of you up to bat and so confident and so skilled. You're just holding that bat in your right hand and everybody concentrating on where that ball was going to go and not in the least bit thinking that you were different. And I've carried that all these years because I think it's such a special thing to me that I got to be in that 6th grade and watch you that year and watch you interact with other kids. And it was very special to me to carry that picture away with me. I moved on to another district at the end of that year, but I've just always carried that picture in my head of you up to bat in the...
I remember that. I remember that moment. I remember going out and playing baseball, Mr. Altamos's class, and there was a couple other classes, and I remember you being there. You left Kimberly in 1981?
Uh-huh,
Okay,
right.
okay, so,
So I didn't get to follow you after that. The only picture I had was, that spring, baseball, and it was great. But that's the first thing that flashed into my mind when my son said, "Do you know where he is?" And wherever he is, he's all right, because
well,
he had that drive.
I owe you a lot, and this really is kind of a very special moment for me to be able to be here and have this opportunity and be able to put it on film and all that. So
I guess you also understand what a big moment it is for a teacher every time a child gives back. It reminds me, I was sitting in a hot tub at the local health club, and this handsome kid comes in. He's about 20 or 22, and he sits down. And he says, "You're Mr. Jenkins." And well, I was an administrator for 15 years, and sometimes you have to really ride herd on kids. And so I'm running it through my head, who are you? What they do? And I said, "Tell me who you are." And he has the most unusual name. His name's Trell Canet. That hardly sounds like a name. It's maybe a corporation or something.
Terrell Cadet.
I said, "Oh yeah, I remember you. You were a great student." He says, "Thanks for helping me all the way through college." And I said, "What?" And he said, "You came into our class one day when our teacher had to be gone, and you taught a little mini lesson on how to read text that's not fiction. And I used it all the way through college, and it just made my college so much easier."
Wow. One moment. The power of one moment. Power of one moment.
One little moment. And I was so grateful that I had run into him. I thought, I taught that lesson to 1 million classes.
And how many, kids are probably out there now, adults that, haven't had the opportunity to tell you.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm just very grateful that they found you, and that we were able to connect since 1979.
Yeah.
1979.
I am really glad. It's been really special for me. It's been really
31 years.
special for my family, because we're a family of teachers. We have like 9 teachers in my immediate family. So
Wow.
my sons and daughter-in-laws, son-in-laws.
Very neat. Great opportunity. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for watching the interview with Mr. Jenkins. I hope it made an impact in your life. If you would like some more information, I want you to go to darrensargent.com for publications, resources, videos, things that I have there that will help you and your family, help families, help teachers. Check it out, darrensargent.com.